Okay, good morning. So this morning we are looking at the halachas of washing your hands before Mincha, and in fact before Ma'ariv as well. This is brought in Siman Reish Lamed Gimel Seif Beis. Says the Mechaba, Im yesh le'mayim, if a person has water, tzorich little yodov kadei lehispala. A person should wash his hands in order that he can daven. Av al pi she'en yodeh lohem shum lichluch. Even though he might, he's not aware of any dirt, or that he may have touched places which are normally covered, etc. But he should still wash his hands before mincha. V'lo yevorich. You don't make a bracha on this netila. V'ayin le'el siman tzadi beis sif hey. Says the Ramah, Hago, v'afilu oimed milimudai yitzil yodov. A person could have been learning the whole morning, still, and then he goes off to mincha. He should still do netilas yodayim before mincha. V'mein lo mayim zumonim ein tzarich little. And if there isn't any water available, then he doesn't need to wash his hands. Okay, let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Sif Kotten Tes Vav, tzarich little. So before mincha he should wash his hands. Says the Mishnah Berurah, bein letfilas mincha, bein letfilas arvis. The mitzvah little yodov letfilah. There is a mitzvah to wash your hands before davening. If you look at 30, how much do you need to wash? What is the shear? So he says, v'shir hanatila kosav le'el shehu ad hapereg. You wash till the wrist, but the eved die ad kishri etzba'isov. You can wash till the knuckles. That's generally the rule. Like Tisha B'Av, we only wash minimally, but ideally you wash till the wrist, and if not, until the knuckles. Back to the Mishnah Berurah. Afal pisha eni yodeh. So even though he's not aware of any lichluch, of any dirt, still he should wash his hands. V'im notel yodov letfilas mincha. If a person washes his hands for mincha and wasn't mesiach das, he didn't divert his attention from that. Ein tzorich little yodov l'tfilas harvis. If, for example, he davens like we discussed yesterday, mincha followed by ma'ariv straight away, then the washing of his hands for mincha will suffice for ma'ariv as well. Interestingly, in note 32, he says the same thing about shachris going into musaf. Im notel yodov l'shachris, he says in 32, lo yisiach daito mishmirason ein tzorich little yodov l'musaf. So you can just go straight through into musaf if as long as he wasn't mesiach das. Sif katan yudzayin va'ayin le'el haynu madavu mavuasham da'afilu hayu yodov meluchlachos v'noitel yodov l'tfila einem mevarich. That if a person's hands were dirty, and even if they were dirty, you don't make a bracha on that netila. So on this netila, you wash your hands before mincha or before mariv. You don't need to make a bracha on that. And even if you know that your hands were dirty, you don't make a bracha on that. If you look at 33, so he says, "V'chein lenagav es yodov kosav le'el she'ein haniguv ma'akiv k'mesh ma'akiv metilas daim lachila." The niguv, the washing, the drying of your hands is not essential. In other words, you can walk into shul, you wash your hands, and if for whatever reason you don't want to dry them, you can do that. When it comes to eating, it's a problem. You should dry your hands because the tumah has gone onto the water and therefore it will be metame. But this is a different type of washing, and therefore drying hands for this type of washing is not essential. If you carry on number 33, he says, do you need to use a kli for when you wash your hands before mincha? I think it's one of those things that not a lot of people do. You see some of those people they dip their hand under the tap, but really it's proper. It should be a proper natila. But you need a kli. So he says in 33 in the second paragraph, "V'haim tzorech little ez yodov menatila zuar de kli kosav besifrei shari rachamim she'af shelo nagu kadas hagra levarich al natila letfila." That the Vilna Gaon would actually make a bracha of netilas yadayim in the washing before tefillah. Even though we don't make a bracha like the Vilna Gaon did, but still you should use a keli. Sheyesh little mikli. Meidach, on the other hand, haksos hashulchan kosav she'ein tzorich little yodov mikli v'gam lo tzorich sheyeh b'koach neisen. Nor do you have to actually have it poured by human effort. V'lo shah hadvarim hama'agvim min netilas yadayim lachila, and it hasn't got the same requirements of netilas yadayim that we normally have for washing for bread. Even if a person went to the bathroom, or he covered parts of the body he touched parts of the body which are normally covered, again he says you don't need a kli for that. So there's machlekes haposkim whether you need a kli for netilas yadayim before mincha. If one can, I suppose it's better. but certainly what to rely on if you can't. Back to the Mishnah Berurah, continuing Yud Zayin. Va'ayin le'el b'siman Zayin sif aleph Mishnah Berurah. Okay, Yud Ches milimudai. So even if he was learning the whole morning and then he goes off to Mincha, he still should wash until his Yadayim. It says the Mishnah Berurah, Rotzolema, the mistama lo noga be'emetz ha'limud makam metunaf, because he's been sitting in the base medrash all morning, so it's unlikely that he's touched a part of the body which is normally covered. Afilu hachi mitzvah lital b'shvil hatfilah. Still, there's a separate mitzvah to wash your hands for davening. If you look at 35. He says, well, what is the reason? Why in fact should you wash your hands before mincha? So in 35 he says, "Betam hadova kosav haprisha, shari tefillah hi b'mokum korban hatomid." Shachris and mincha are really instead in lieu of the korban tomid, shachris and the korban tomid shabenu abayim. V'hakohanim hoitzrichim lekadesh yisidem kodim hakorban hatomid, and the kohanim would have to wash their hands before offering up the korban tomid. V'hachesed la'alofim kosav anatilazu she'rabim ein choshim litol esidem klal. Many people are not particular to wash their hands before mincha. V'oivrim al divrei chacham zichrin lebracha lebracha b'dvarim kalim. It's an easy one to do, just to wash your hands before mincha, and he's sort of surprised that a lot of people don't seem to do this. For kosav hamogen avram, continuing the Mishnah Berurah, Yud Ches, to mikol makom not le tefillah v'hifsik belimud ein tzarich little shenis. If a person washed his hands before he came into, let's say he learned for an hour before mincha, and he washed his hands before he came in, and then he learned, so in that situation you don't need to wash your hands a second time immediately before mincha. In Shabbos, where during laning you can sell the aliyahs, and it could be a long gap. There's been such a long gap, I guess, such a performance that your mind has been diverted about this sort of thing, and therefore you should wash your hands again for musaf. Unless you kept your mind on the ball and you were not distracted by the shenanigans of the auction. Rabbi Kosev, the Kolzman Shem Beis HaMedrash Minastam Ein Bohen Kan Hesach Hadas. Mistama that if you're in the Beis HaMedrash the whole time, there was no Hesach Hadas and there's not really a problem. V'china minhag. That is the minhag, and you don't see people sort of running out just before Musaf to wash their hands. I suppose your focus has always been in the Beis HaMedrash to stay there in the shul, and therefore you don't have to wash your hands again. Okay, Yud Tes, what is that going on? Yeah, va'afilu oimed milimuda yitzal yodov letfila. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Tes, va'afilu nosad yodov la'achila. Even if a person washed his hands for eating, va'ochal, and then he ate, v'lo yisiach daitoi, and he wasn't mesiach das, sorech lenatila letfila, he should wash his hands for davening, she'ein netilosoi la'achila oile letfila. The netilas yadayim you did for eating does not count, does not double up for a netilas yadayim for tefillah. However, the netilas yadayim we all did this morning when we woke up, that counts for tefillah as well. So we wash negelvas in the morning after when you wake up, and then you just wash your hands again after you've touched parts of the body which have been covered. So that washing will help for shachris. So that's why I suppose where we all come in for shachris, we don't need to wash our hands again because that suffices. Okay.
This time you've put your shoes in between. Yeah.
Right, so like we did, so really you should wash negelvas as soon as you can when you wake up in the morning, and then after you get dressed, you've touched parts of the body which are normally covered, you've touched your shoes and things, so therefore you should rinse your hands again, yeah. And that second natila will count for tefillah, he's saying. Okay, chof, the Mechaber finished off and said, im ein lo mayim mezumonim, ein sarich little, says the Mishnah Berurah, eliyanake yodav b'chol midi de menake. You can just clean your hands on anything that sort of is cleansing. If you look at 37, he says, you see people do this. They're on the table or something, and he says, interestingly in 37, this cleaning is instead of washing your hands with water. So it's not just sort of touching with the fingertips. It's a proper sort of wiping your hand on some sort of material, or whether it's a table or whether it's a towel or something. Or but the evid must be got soif kishres b'osav. Like we said before, it suffices to do at least until the knuckles. Not just a sort of a fingertip touch. right, like that. But it should be, sort of your whole hand on a material base. V'im ein lo mokum little es yodov l'tefillah ele bebeis hakisei, kosu b'shad shuv zikros Moshe, sheyitel es yodov bebeis hakisei v'yinagvim b'chutz, v'odov v'nekes yodov be'ezeh dovo. If only there's a bathroom and you can't, like you're in a service station or something, then dry your hands outside, or in a hotel, or there's sinks inside the bathroom, so then you can't make the bracha there. So dry your hand at least outside, so you're completing the action outside. Okay, so if there's no water there, you clean your hands. Says the Mishnah Berurah on any other cleansing item, like I say, to wipe your hands on a table or on a chair, or just to wipe the whole hand, ideally, or certainly at least till kishri etzba'isov, until your knuckles. Now all of this is when you're not sure if your hands are clean or not. But if you know your hands have touched mokum matunaf, i.e. a part of the body which is normally covered, if you went to the bathroom, then you do need to wash your hands because your hands are tummy. Is like you would in shachris. Okay, so that's the end of this simon of Reish Lamed Gimel, and I think it's an easy win to wash your hands before Mincha. Not everyone does it, like he says, and it seems strange that a lot of people don't do it. So lechatchila, as we said, you've got to wash the entire hands, at least up to kishri etzba'isov. Machlokes whether you need a kli or not, and even if you don't need a kli, just to put a tap, but it should preferably be the whole hand, certainly till kishri etzba'isov, and if you haven't got water available, then to wipe your hands on the table or something. But again, to wipe ideally the whole hand, or certainly not kishri etzba'isov. There's a famous Maisa with a Klausenberg. My father was always very misspelled by this. That he was in the camps, and there wasn't keli with water. The Nazis didn't provide that. And then when they were liberated, and he got water with the kli, everyone was chalashing for clear water to drink, and they were exhausted and they were thirsty, and he. It could be that I can't remember exactly the detailed story. It could be there was water. It could be that it was water. There was a nace with the water that came out with him. Either way, he got hold of it. But the first thing he did with the water was not to drink it, but to wash his hands for mincha. That was what he was. That lack of not having water to wash his hands for mincha was more painful for him than not having a nice cold drink of water. He's reading his book. Yeah, he brings the Maisa. It's a fabulous Maisa. I once heard from Rabbi Roberts, from Pinchas Roberts, who was a tremendous Talmud Chacham, was your classic Litvischer Rav. But I remember he once told me that if he would have his time again, he would be a Klausenberger Chassid. Yeah, whenever he would say a Maisa, if there's something between the Chamar, he would speak. He would say, "I'm not a Chassidish, Yid. I'm not a Chad." But he was a Litvischer Rav. But he would say because he was very misspelled by the Klausenberger. Okay, Beseda.